In the last few videos on the frame damage 335i F30 project, we took care of all of the damaged frame rails, replaced them with new metal, and we got all of the framework back to factory specs. Then I swapped over all the steering and suspension onto the replacement subframe, reinstalled the engine and transmission onto the subframe, and then got all of that installed back into the car. So I think my goal for today's video is to get this car put back together enough so we can start it and then possibly even get it out on the road for a test drive. So let's get into it on Rebuild Revival. So I think where I'm gonna start today is putting this cooling assembly back together. Like I mentioned before, a lot of this stuff came in boxes and I didn't really know all the parts that I had or what went to what. Some of the parts didn't even go to this car. Like this intercooler pipe, I think went to an N20. I'm not 100% sure. It's either to this car and comes off of the intercooler there and goes to the turbo, or that smaller one is. I think the smaller one is, and I think this one is to a different car. So I'm gonna go through and start mounting all of this stuff back up to where it goes. And on this car, there is a lot of cooling. So we've got an auxiliary radiator here. This is just a small radiator. Obviously the main radiator here. We've got the intercooler down on the bottom, a transmission heat exchanger on this side. Over on this side, we've got an oil cooler as well as an oil heat exchanger. This is the transmission cooler and this one is actually damaged, so we'll need a new one of those. Here is the main water pump that is still damaged that we're gonna fix. And here is an auxiliary water pump that comes with the auxiliary radiator, which is over there. So a ton of cooling on this car. So I wanna mount everything back up to this bumper assembly because everything mounts to this. So then we can see what we have or what we still need to go get. As I was putting this assembly together, I realized that a few of the parts are not going to work for this 335i M Sport. This assembly probably came off of a non-M Sport car or some type of 328 or 320. So I need to order a few parts, including the radiator, condenser, a few lower bumper brackets, and then this lower bumper support. So I'm going to jump on some other stuff while I wait for the parts. And there are a couple of things that mount in this area right here, and that is the auxiliary water pump, and I think this is the transmission cooler heat exchanger. They both mount to this bracket, and this bracket sits in here like this, but this apron assembly and strut tower didn't have the nut inserts where they should be. I actually already just put one in here, but we need to put a nut insert here and back over on the strut tower right there. And I accidentally put a little bit smaller of one down here, but we do have some bigger ones for here. Nice tight fit, and then back here. All right, for down here, I'm just gonna use this style clip, just like that. All right, that's how all of that sits in there. Auxiliary water pump and the oil heat exchanger. And I'm gonna jump over to repairing this water pump bracket. So this portion here needs to be fixed. You got a small crack right there, so that needs to be welded up as well. And then this whole bracket. After trying to repair both of the holes on the original water pump bracket, I ended up just cutting the whole little mount bracket off because it cracked, and this way was just going to work a lot better. So I just welded on a new plate and then I'll drill holes through the plate. I also tried to weld up the separate water pump mount bracket that is separate from the water pump because it was broken and it ended up cracking after as well. So I just ordered a new one of those. All right guys, well, I'm done with the water pump welds. Turned out okay. Not great, but I think it's gonna be fine. So while we wait on the rest of our cooling parts, like the radiator, etc., we're gonna jump into the engine bay and hook everything up that doesn't have to do with the cooling assembly, like all of the electronics, brake lines, vacuum lines, lots of stuff to hook up in here. So we're gonna jump on that now. We'll do the new oil filter. We'll also do the O-rings. And I think this is for the drain plug. So 2 O-rings and a drain plug. One of the things I'm gonna do is attach this ground junction block to the bottom of this panel here. There's supposed to be a stud that came off of the original one. I'm going to drill a hole, use a rivet nut, and then just bolt this to that. I think that will be good. That's just a ground junction block that mounts to the bottom of this. One bolt right here. Okay, there we go. All right, well, I got the car lifted up in the air and I was about to start installing the exhaust and a couple other things, but was gonna start with the exhaust, and I noticed, which I'd noticed before but forgot about, one of the exhaust hangers is broken, so I need to order that. And I looked up here to the cat. This is the cat. This is where the exhaust clamps onto, and they have just a regular hose clamp here, which it should be a V-band exhaust clamp. I don't know what they were doing with this, because that is definitely not gonna work. So I just ordered one of these clamps and the exhaust hanger, so we're gonna have to wait to install that until they come, so we're on hold with that. So now I'm just gonna do these fuel lines. There's a plug here for the oil level sensor. Got that. Just gonna do a little silicone spray to make it go on easier. Or a lot. There we go. That's there. Let's see. Okay. I'll bolt up this ground strap. We'll get the drain plug in before I forget with the new copper washer. Now I'll bolt the drive shaft in and tighten up the transmission mount. All right, so it's been a few days since I last recorded anything. I had to order quite a few parts and I keep running into different things that I'm missing or that are broken, but I've finally got pretty much everything I need, I think, to put this car back together to get it running. And a couple of things we've got here is some intake pieces. So this is a part of the intake, obviously. This piece actually finishes the intake off and goes into the turbo. So that's new. These two are obviously used. The charge pipe that comes from the intercooler that goes to the throttle body, intercooler here, throttle body there. The exhaust clamp, the V-band clamp that we're missing. The exhaust mount, the battery terminal. It has a little charge in it that when you get into an accident, it separates. So there is no electricity going to the car anymore. The one in the car is broken. I'll show you that later when I swap this. This is the crankcase vent hose that goes from the valve cover to actually right here in this pipe. So this was missing, didn't have that. That turbocharger cutoff solenoid, the one that was in the car, was broken. One of the bumper brackets. This bracket goes right here, and this setup is not for an M Sport bumper. So this cross brace and these brackets that are on this bumper setup are not gonna work, so I had to get some replacements. This is actually the M Sport cross brace right here. So this one sits pretty much something like that underneath. So That whole support bar and those two brackets are wrong. And this is the air dam. So this one is all beat up, broken. This is a nice new one. It sits pretty much right where this one is. Right behind here, like that, like this, one of those ways. It sits right in there, so now we've got that. I'm gonna go ahead and install the exhaust now, and I think while I've got it up in the air, I'm gonna go ahead and bleed the brakes with this. So we have that done. Pull the original mount off, a couple of E10s, and then we'll slide the new one on the exhaust. Now, hopes and prayers. Let's get the V-band ready. It's looking good. Okay, so first we're just gonna top off the reservoir, and we're using .4. Now we'll pop the bottle on here. All right, got this all tightened down. Now we can open the valve. That is topped off. All right, so here's the setup. We've got our bleeder here. The valve is closed, our airline is hooked up, and then we've got our bleeder hose run up to the caliper furthest away from the reservoir. So this is the passenger rear, and we've got it over the bleeder valve, which is right there. And on this car, it is an 11 millimeter. So now what we're gonna do is turn the valve on. We'll create vacuum inside of the canister, and it'll suck all the air out of the lines back to this caliper, and then until we see a fresh, steady flow of fluid out of this bleeder screw. Once we're done with this caliper, we'll go to the driver rear, then we'll go to the passenger front caliper and finish it off with the driver front caliper. Well, as you can see, I've got parts spread out everywhere. I am removing the radiator out of this cooling assembly here, out of the bumper radiator support, and that's because what was in here is a non-M Sport radiator, and that is this used one back here. And the difference is on this side, you've got this main port here, just like on this one, but on the non-M Sport, there's a small port that comes out of the top, and this one needs to come out of about halfway down, or a little more than halfway. So not the top, but right here is where we need the port. And here are the new and used AC condensers. This is obviously the used one. Here's the new one. The only difference is on the top of the receiver dryer or accumulator, which is this over here. As you can see on this one, it goes all the way up to the top. Big bracket here, screw. This one, it stops almost all the way up to the top, and there's a little space right there, and that is for these two lines. They have to go pretty much just like this, and then there's a plastic cover or panel that goes where my hand is. So these two lines have to sneak by right there, and on this one, they cannot. So now I'll just put the cooling and bumper assembly back together using all of the new M Sport parts that I got. All right, now we've got this lined up here, and I need to bolt a couple of things onto the car. So first we'll go in with the boost control solenoid, or boost cutoff, turbocharger cutoff solenoid. And there is a little dowel right here, so it can only go in one way. And that is like this. I'm gonna do a little silicone spray on here just so it slides into the turbo better. Okay. Okay. Now the much anticipated water pump with our replacement water pump bracket. Now I'll go in with the charge pipe, and you just need to remove the drive belt out of the way. Oh, I think it's gonna go. I think it's gonna go. Yes. Awesome. Now we'll do the hot side pipe. So I've got all of the hoses run and hooked up where they need to on the car, as well as on the whole cooling assembly. So now we need to basically set this thing up there, hook everything up, and then bolt it in. It's pretty heavy. Car needs to come up just a little bit. So I'm just gonna go around and hook up all of the cooling in this car. There is a ton of cooling lines to hook up from the cooling assembly to the engine, and there is little to no room to show it or to even work on it. Here are a couple of diagrams that show just how much cooling there is in this car. The main one up top shows pretty much 90% of what the car has, and then the other two are just a couple other missing components from the main diagram. I couldn't find a diagram that shows everything, but anyways, there is just a ton of cooling lines running everywhere, and like I said, little to no room to show. So I'm just gonna run through this and get all this stuff hooked up. All right, well, cooling assembly, bumper assembly, back on. So I think we're probably going to be able to start this thing tomorrow. It is about 9 o'clock, so I'm going to call it a night. I need to get a battery in the morning, couple more hours of work, and then we should be able to start this thing. All right guys, well, it's the next day, and I'm just going to go through and continue hooking everything up. I've got mostly everything done. So some of the stuff we're going to do is finish up the intake. You know, you've got the filter housing going over to here. There's another coolant hose right here that goes right here. So that is no big deal. Got some AC lines. I'm waiting on one AC line in the mail, so not gonna have AC, won't do that right now. So we're pretty much there. I just need to go around and connect a few more things, install a couple more things. Expansion tank, that's another one. And then we can fill this thing up with fluids and try and start it. I also got a new battery, and then the battery terminal, like I mentioned before. We've got a couple of connectors. This one, pull that off. But it's easier, so I don't have to get into here and possibly take this module off. I can just disconnect it from here, and we'll reuse this cable, even though the one that I got came with both cables. I'm just going to reuse this one, and then we'll replace the one that goes down here. So on this car, we've got an air intake that comes from the side here, goes through kind of the bumper assembly, and then goes into the intake here. So this air duct is missing, so we'll connect that. And it snaps into this piece here. All right, let's go ahead and fill it up with some oil. We've got our new filter. We've got a new washer on the drain plug. We're going in with 0.40, and I believe this takes around 6.5 quarts or 6.9 liters. All right, guys, now I've got the car lifted up in the air, and I'm going to tighten down all of the suspension at ride height. We'll loosen all of the bushings first, and then we'll put some weight on the car, and then tighten everything down at ride height. I may have to do this again because this, for some reason, isn't compressing very much. Maybe because the shocks are new. It needs to be bounced a lot, but this is better than nothing. All right, guys, now we're gonna vacuum bleed the cooling system. Well, first we're gonna pull a vacuum on it, and hopefully we don't have any leaks. So let's pull a vacuum on. We've got our vacuum bleeder hooked up. I'll open the valve to the air line. Yeah, we're dropping. I think I hear a little air. I wanted to kind of flush the cooling system anyway, so if there is a little leak, I'm okay with losing some fluid. So let's go ahead and we'll hook it back up to vacuum. Vacuum bled. And this is probably 75% water. We are going to scan this thing. 20 faults in the DME. Yes, yes, yes. Quick erase. Everything. Of course, a ton are gonna come back. All the airbag stuff is gonna come back. Okay. Let's try and start it. I'm going to do an manual activation. There we go. Do we have fuel pressure here? We're gonna hit the fuel pump again for 120 seconds. Let's crank her again. All right, so as you guys saw, it wouldn't start. It would crank over, but it wouldn't start. The codes were telling me a bunch of shorts to ground on a lot of the sensors on the engine. So I went around and checked all of the grounds, and some of the ground posts like this one underneath here had paint on it. So I cleaned all of the ground posts, reconnected all of the grounds, including the main ground underneath the car. And now this is gonna be our first time trying to start it after doing all that.
Put a little heat on.
Hey! All right, guys. guys, check that out. Sounded good. Obviously a little smoke coming off the exhaust from when we cleaned everything, but that's no big deal. It's been running now for probably a little over 5 minutes. It's warming up nicely. Sounds great. Still burning off some stuff back over there. I want to see if it'll shift. So let's shift it. Let's let off the brake. Oh. Why is that thing, look at that wheel. Oh, it's loose. Huh, okay. I guess I had this wheel off. Ah, a couple of water leaks here. Yep. This water line is leaking right there. And then this water line right there is also leaking. So we've got a couple of coolant hoses that are leaking, but still not a big deal. Just swap a couple of those out. All right guys, we've got quite a few Christmas lights here. All right guys, well, you saw it, it was running. I did have a couple of water leaks or coolant leaks. One hose I was able to fix. I just had to cut it, shorten it, and then reclamp it to the fitting. No big deal, it was just a quick little fix. And the other one I tried to fix, but I couldn't, so I think I need to replace one coolant hose. Not a big deal. It was running, and everything was good. Obviously, there's still issues. There was some stuff that has to do with a lot of the airbags. All the airbags still need to be replaced. The electronic power steering pump, there was an issue with that, but I think it has to do with the steering wheel airbag, so I'm going to replace that. So there's still a couple of little things before I want to actually take this out and drive it. And today I've got to go home now, so we're gonna leave it at that. I do really want to get this out on the road before the end of this episode. It is getting longer and longer, of course, like all of my videos, but I do want to get this out on the road. So we're gonna come back tomorrow and hopefully fix a couple of these things, and then I want to take it out for a drive. But for today, that's gonna be it. But she's running, so we'll leave it at that. I want to replace that airbag, so I'm going to disconnect the ground. To remove the airbag, you stick a T27 Torx into the hole on either side of the steering wheel, and it will release the spring-loaded clips holding in the airbag. For some reason, I bet somebody was prying on this, trying to get it off. It needs to be pushed in so I can get to the clip. I think I just got that one. Hey! Okay. Here are the two spring clips. There's one there and there's one here. And when I go in, here's where that hole comes in. You're supposed to be able to push it just like that. So you want to hit there and then push just like that. Yeah, so I just looked at some pictures of some, and this thing is not supposed to be bent like that. So I'm gonna remove it. I'm thinking it's just these 3 Torx, and then it'll come out, and I'll show you how bent it is once I get it out. Look at that thing. Completely tacoed. So we'll straighten this, put it back in, and then mount the new airbag. All right guys, so I was trying to figure out what's going on with the EPS. It's the electronic power steering module. And I thought it had something to do with the steering wheel airbag, but it didn't. So I started testing wires and I saw that we're good with power and ground here at the module. And then I started looking at the faults, and the faults had to do with the flex ray, which is the CAN bus signal coming from the EPS going back to the DME or FEM, then the DME or wherever it goes. So there's an issue with the CAN bus signal, and I actually found this wire right here, disconnected. Now it didn't look like that when I first found it. It was kind of tucked up back over here, and the tape wasn't as ripped open like that. I started pulling on it kind of like this to see that it was actually, you know, completely disconnected, and it was. So I think we found our issue, obviously. I mean, it's a broken wire. So I'm gonna pull this all apart and I'll solder it, and we'll see if that fixes the issue. All right guys, so we are using ISTA, and we're gonna do a complete identification, which is gonna take like a couple minutes, and hopefully we'll have connectivity to the EPS. Hey, look at that. Before it was red. Let's display the fault memory, and we're going to delete. So let's see. Ah, it's green. That is green. That means it's good. That means our fix worked. Hey, now we have 25. We started at 40. A couple of things. It's because the headlights aren't connected and we still have bad airbags. So I'm not really worried about a lot of this stuff. Okay, well, why don't we mount up the headlights and get rid of like half of this stuff. So 25 faults, let's hook up the headlights and see if we could get that down to about 10 or 15. Okay, so I've got new headlights. These are the depots. If you guys know, then you know. If not, they are a really good aftermarket option for about half as much as, or less than half of what BMW would charge. So, hey, boom. All right guys, there it is. Got them both mounted up. Looking super clean. I didn't peel the plastic off, so if it looks weird, that's why. And they're not completely adjusted right. Fenders still need to be adjusted. The headlights, the bumper, everything needs to be adjusted a little bit. But let's clear all the faults and make sure none of them come back. Okay, well, let's delete the fault memory. And see what comes back. Oh, only down to 21. Dang. Okay. Headlight driver module. No LIN slave. I could have bought the wrong headlights. I think this car should have the automatic adjusting headlights up and down, and then they may also turn with the steering wheel. Maybe I'll just code all that stuff out. I think when I bought these, it was a very long time ago, and I didn't know what I was looking for. Bummer. I wanted to test the power steering, so I started it, and it is light as a feather. So power steering is working properly. Sweet. All right, so now I'm gonna fix that next coolant hose leak. So it's actually this hose right here. So the first thing we're gonna do is disconnect it and then drain everything, but I'm going to recapture this coolant because all of this coolant that I just put in is the proper ratio and I want to put it back in. Got my clean, whatever you want to call this, type of funnel. I love this thing. It catches so much fluid. I'll put a link in the description. I think I did get it on Amazon. And then I've also got a clean bucket underneath. I didn't hit record, but there we go. We're capturing some of it. It's also all over me. Let's see if we take the cap off, if it goes faster. Yep. All right, well, we'll let that drain for a little and then we'll remove the hose and fix it. All right, so I'm gonna cut this piece off. I think I'm going to use this piece here. It's pretty similar to that. So this is how we're gonna splice it together. We'll just use this fitting with a couple of clamps on either side. Should be good to go. All right, now I'm gonna vacuum bleed and fill the coolant again, hopefully for the last time. And I will not bore you with the details. So I'll come back when I'm done. All right, let's start it and check for coolant leaks. I'll just pop the bumper cover on real quick. I think I'm gonna get new headlights. I found a set of adaptive headlights for a pretty good deal. I think I'll need to refinish them, but this car's set up for adaptive headlights. It's set up for bi-xenon. These are only the single xenon with the normal halogen. That's a halogen, HID on this side. So it's got all the modules, it's got all the coding for adaptive bi-xenon. And like I said, I think I found a good deal on a set of used ones. So I don't want to take the plastic off, but I do want to go drive it. So I'm leaving the plastic on and I'll probably end up selling these. If anybody wants them, good deal on a pair of brand new depot HID F30 headlights. So I'm gonna leave the plastic on for now. Still waiting on it to heat up to check for coolant leaks, but in the meantime, I'm going to bolt this bumper up with a couple of bolts. No leaks yet. So I was thinking about going for a drive, but it's dark. It's towards the end of the day. And I think it's probably a better idea if I wait until tomorrow. Excited to take this thing out for a drive. Wow. I love it when a plan comes together. You guys ever watch Rick and Morty? I think I gotta go drive it. All right, we're gonna go fill up. So I'm gonna go in with some Lucas injector cleaner and fuel conditioner. Give it a good amount here. All right, guys, first start of the first drive. Woo! So smooth. And we need gas. So let's pull out and go get some gas. I'm excited. And reverse. Lights are on. All right, let's go. All right, guys, we just filled up with gas. I was trying to put my seatbelt on, but it is tight. All right, guys, well, I don't think I was recording any of that this whole time. Been driving for 5 or 10 minutes now. Whoo! And we are back. Check it out. There's a Land Rover Incognito. All right guys, well I did go for a quick little drive last night. The footage was super dark. I wasn't really set up to film. I couldn't wait. I was super excited to get out and drive. And now I am just going around and looking for leaks. I don't see anything leaking. There was still a little bit of like coolant residue here and there, but I'm pretty sure nothing is leaking. Oil pan, super dry. The tranny pan, which we didn't do, is also very dry. Everything looks good under here. Went around, looked at everything. Everything's still tight. Nothing's loose. Everything is good to go under here. Because I am gonna take this out again right now for an actual full test drive. Like I said, I just kind of went around the block a couple of times, got gas, but I do wanna scan it really quick to see if any new codes popped up. So we're gonna lower it down, hook it up to the scanner and see what it says. All right, so we're just using the Autel right now. So we'll go into BMW. I do really like the Autel. The subscription is pretty pricey, but it is a really, really good scanner. So we'll just give it a second to pull everything up. DME, I think these are to do with the ambient temperature. The crankcase vent, outside temperature sensor, yep. Power management standby, nothing. Can't believe that there's nothing in the DME. I mean, there's those three minor, they'll probably not come back. ABS, so this one's kind of weird. This one has to do with the ambient temperature, I think. Let's see. Outside temperature, signal invalid. It's just the temperature sensor is not hooked up. Airbag, it's all the airbags. The combi, it's the same one with the outside temperature. Yep, no big deal. The sensor's just not hooked up. FEM, I think has a lot to do with the headlights. Intermittent reset or deactivation of terminal 30F. That's probably gonna go away if I cleared them. The window just needs to be normalized. Headlights, headlights, headlights. Washer pump, I haven't hooked up the reservoir yet. Washer jet, haven't hooked that up. Refrigerant pressure, I still need to hook up one line. AUC sensor, automatic air recirculation, is not hooked up yet. AUC not hooked up. Headlights, 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 nothing. 90% of that with the right headlights. This one, all-round view camera, this thing doesn't have that camera. I don't know what this one is about. Let's see here. Outside temperature signal, invalid. Okay. So if I hooked up the temperature sensor, also 90% of these would go away. Let's see what this one is. Ambient temperature sensor. What's next? Rear electronic module. This is new, I think. Ultrasonic sensor, front outer left signal line. Ultrasonic sensor, front center left. Oh, these are the parking sensors, which are not hooked up yet. And outside temperature sensor and the air recirculation, I'm sure, for the IHKA. Status of pressure sensor for coolant circuit, invalid, transmitter, FEM. We'll see. This one just needs to be hooked up. So pretty much none of those are super important. Lots to do with the headlights, lots to do with some sensors that aren't hooked up. Pretty much that was it. So once we get the correct headlights and the rest of the sensors, it's a lot of the stuff that goes up here on the cowl. Once all of that stuff is hooked up, 90% of those codes are gonna go away, if not 100. So that's really good. We didn't have any serious codes as far as the engine goes, transmission, suspension, steering, cooling, nothing. So I'm pretty happy about that. We're gonna go out for another drive now that it's daylight. So let's go out for a drive and really kind of test everything in the car. Maiden voyage number 2. No seatbelt, I keep forgetting. So I figure before we leave, we will pull up some live data, see if there is anything interesting here. Oil pressure, good. Camshaft timing changing, good. Battery temperature, very cool. Alternator temperature, also very cool. Okay, let's scroll through some of this stuff really quick. Okay, wait, what the heck was that? Is there a camera in this thing? Wait, there's a camera in this? I didn't know there was a camera in this. Cool. Hey, all the TPMSs are working. That's cool. Ooh, engine oil level at minimum. Please add 1 quart of engine oil. Interesting. All right, guys, I just added a quart. There we go. Oil level max. We're good to go. Sport displays. Wow, look at that. Whoo! That's cool. I don't need my seatbelt. I do, but I can't wear it. It feels so weird driving without a seatbelt. Going into sport mode. Sport displays. There we go. So the brakes are still kind of grinding off some of that rust that was on the rotors. Yeah, this thing is driving super straight. I'm still going to get it aligned, but I mean, it's like almost perfect. Let's have a little fun here. Woo! No cops. We're still at 220. 220 coolant temperature. And we are still in sport mode. Well, the struts up front are new. The struts in the rear only have 46,000 miles on them, so they're great. I'm still going to be replacing those as well. And then the brakes, I'll probably do new rotors and pads while I'm in there. I am super excited though. I mean, I bought this car over 2 years ago, and it's finally back on the road, and it's running like amazing. Woo! All right, guys, we're gonna do a pull here. Ready? Woo! That was fun. All right, guys, well, I would say that that is a very successful test drive, and only a couple of minor things, the sunroof and obviously all of those sensors we still need to hook up, ambient temperature and the parking distance sensors in the front. But other than that, everything went really smooth, so let's head back to the shop. All right, that's gonna do it for today's video. I know it's taken me quite a while to get this episode out there. It's because I've been spending a lot of time on this house project that I just got. If you follow me on Instagram, maybe you've seen it. Regardless, I am gonna be jumping back into this and finishing it up because I gotta get this thing done. I've got a ton of other projects on the list: Roush Mustang, FJ Cruiser, E30, couple of discoveries, a lot of stuff. If you haven't watched the other videos on this project, go and check those out so you can see where this project started. It has been a pretty big transformation up until this point, and we're not done yet, but we are very close. And if you are enjoying the F30 content or today's video, definitely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.